The night was silent on planet Zira, a cold world covered with blue dust and strange glowing trees. Far away from the cities, in a lonely desert village, a young alien woman named Lyra lay still inside a dark pit. Her thin arms trembled, her breathing weak. The heavy soil above her pressed on her chest. She was buried alive by her own family. Lyra was born different. Unlike others of her kind, she could not walk properly. Her legs were weak, her voice soft, and her eyes glowed in a strange silver light. Her people believed she was cursed, and a bad sign for the family. They said her weakness brought shame. Her father, Chief Doran, was a proud man. He believed only the strong could survive. When Lyra turned 20 cycles old, he made a cruel decision: to erase the family's shame forever. That night they carried her to the cold desert, told her it was a ceremony of rebirth. She trusted them, until the first handful of sand fell on her face. Her mother cried silently as the others buried Lyra alive. Lyra could hear their voices fading. Then only darkness remained. Time passed. She couldn't move, couldn't scream. The air grew thin. She felt her heartbeat slowing down. In her final moment, she whispered to the stars above the dirt, "If anyone can hear me, don't let me die like this." Far away, across the galaxies, a human ship was passing near Zira. Inside was Ethan Cole, a space traveler, searching for rare energy stones. His scanners caught something unusual, a weak life signal coming from under the desert ground. He thought it was a glitch, but something in his heart told him to check. He landed his small shuttle in the middle of the glowing desert. The sand shimmered like broken glass. As he walked, the signal grew stronger. He began to dig with his hands faster and faster until he saw a pale blue hand, still moving slightly. Ethan froze for a moment, shocked. "Someone's alive down here," he whispered. He pulled Lyra out, brushing the sand from her face. Her skin was cold, her breathing shallow. He gave her oxygen from his suit. Slowly, her silver eyes opened, confused and afraid. "Who are you?" she asked weakly. "I'm human," he replied softly. "You're safe now." For a moment, Lyra just stared. No one had ever spoken to her with kindness before. Ethan carried her to his ship and wrapped her in a blanket. He looked around. There was no sign of anyone else. "Who did this to you?" he asked. "My family," she said, tears mixing with dust. "They called me a curse." Ethan didn't understand. "But why? You're alive, you're breathing. You have light in your eyes." Lyra closed her eyes. On Zira, weakness means death. Silence filled the ship. Outside, the night sky glowed red from the twin moons. Inside, Ethan's heart burned with anger and confusion. He had seen war, but never something this cruel. He made a promise in that moment to protect her no matter what. But deep inside Lyra's heart, another fire was burning. Darker, stronger. The pain, the betrayal, the fear, all were now turning into something else. Something cold, something vengeful. She remembered every face that threw sand on her, every hand that pushed her into the grave. As Ethan's ship flew away from the desert, Lyra whispered quietly to herself, "They thought they buried me. But they only planted my revenge." Outside, lightning flashed across the alien sky. Her story of vengeance had just begun. The human ship floated in silence through the dark space. Inside, Lyra lay on a medical bed, surrounded by soft lights and strange machines. She had never seen such things before. Smooth walls that glowed, air that smelled clean, and no sound except the soft hum of engines. Ethan sat beside her, typing on a glowing screen. He had saved many lives before, but this one felt different. The alien girl was fragile, yet there was something powerful behind her quiet eyes, something hidden. When Lyra finally opened her eyes fully, she stared at him. "You could have left me there," she said softly. "Why did you save me?" Ethan smiled. "Because no one deserves to be buried alive." She looked away. "On my planet, they think I was born wrong. My legs don't work like theirs. They said I was a mistake from the stars." Ethan paused, his voice gentle. "Maybe they were wrong. Maybe you're something greater." For the first time in her life, Lyra felt warmth, not from the twin sons of Zira, but from a human heart. Days passed. Ethan gave her food, taught her words in human language, and told her stories about Earth, oceans, forests, laughter, and music. Lyra listened like a child seeing the universe for the first time. But sometimes, when he wasn't looking, her eyes turned dark. remembering the grave, the hands that buried her. One night, as the ship passed through a nebula, Lyra woke up from a nightmare. Her body trembled and suddenly strange energy sparked around her hands, glowing silver light the same color as her eyes. The machines near her began to flicker. Ethan rushed in. "Lyra! What's happening?" He shouted. "I don't know," she cried. "It's like fire inside me." The lights burst, the walls shook, and then silence. When it ended, she fell back, exhausted but alive. Ethan looked around. Every system was down for a moment, then slowly restarted. He stared at her, amazed. "You have power," he whispered. "Energy inside your body, like a living reactor." Lyra looked at her trembling hands. "Is that why they feared me?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Maybe they didn't understand your gift." Lyra said nothing. Deep inside, she realized the same power that cursed her might now become her weapon. As days turned to weeks, she learned to control it. With Ethan's help, she trained. When she focused, she could move small objects, heal small wounds, and create light. But every time she used too much power, her eyes turned bright silver and a mark appeared on her skin, a reminder of what she truly was. Ethan grew closer to her, not as a savior, but as a friend. He saw her strength, her will to live, and sometimes when he looked into her eyes, he saw something that scared him. Calm, silent rage. One evening, as the ship hovered near a moon, Lyra sat by the window, watching the stars. "Ethan," she said quietly, "do humans believe in revenge?" He looked at her carefully. "Some do, but revenge changes people. It makes them forget who they are." She nodded slowly. "Maybe I already forgot," he sighed. "What do you plan to do, Lyra?" Her voice was calm, but her words were sharp. "Go back, find them." One by one, Ethan tried to stop her. "You're not ready. You need peace, not war." Lyra turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly. "Peace died the night they buried me." For a moment, the ship was silent. Only the stars watched them. Later that night, when Ethan slept, Lyra stood in front of the ship's control panel. Her reflection looked back at her, no longer weak, no longer afraid. She touched the screen and whispered, "Set course to Zira." The engines roared softly as the ship turned toward her home planet. She didn't know what waited for her there, only that her story wasn't over. Before she left the room, she looked at Ethan one last time. "You gave me life," she said quietly. "Now I must take back what they stole." As the stars stretched around the ship, the silver light in her eyes grew brighter. The buried girl was gone. Now something powerful was awakening, something her world would soon fear again. The silver ship cut through the darkness of space like a silent blade. Lyra stood by the window, watching her home planet, Zira, grow larger with every passing second. Its glowing deserts and twin moons looked peaceful from far away, but her heart remembered only fear. Ethan tried one last time to stop her. "You don't have to do this, Lyra. You have a new life now. You're free." Lyra didn't look at him. Her voice was calm but heavy. "I'm not free until I face them," he sighed. "Then at least let me come with you." She turned to him and smiled, a sad smile. "You already gave me life, Ethan. Don't risk yours." Before he could argue, she stepped into the escape pod. The door closed, sealing her inside. The pod's lights turned silver as it dropped toward the planet. Ethan stood in silence, watching it disappear into the clouds. The land of Ghost Lyra's pod crashed into the same desert where she had been buried. The wind howled through the canyons, carrying the whispers of the dead. She stepped out, her silver eyes glowing faintly under the moons. The ground beneath her feet felt cold, the same ground that had once tried to swallow her. She knelt and touched the sand. "You remember me?" she whispered. "Now I've come back." Her body had changed since that night. Her skin shimmered softly, her legs, once weak, now carried strange strength. The human medicine and her inner power had fused, creating something new, something stronger. She wrapped herself in a dark cloak Ethan had given her and began walking toward her old village. Every step stirred memories, her father's voice, her mother's cries, the sound of sand falling on her face. The village of shadows. The village hadn't changed. Small stone houses circled around a fire pit, where the tribe gathered at night. From a distance she saw them, her people, laughing, living as if nothing had happened. Her heart tightened. "They forgot me," she whispered. "Good, that will make it easier." She waited until nightfall, Then, like a shadow, she entered the village. Her feet made no sound. The air turned colder wherever she walked. Inside one house, she found Zor, her cousin, the one who had thrown the first handful of sand on her face. He was sleeping, his weapons hanging on the wall. Lyra stood over him for a long time, her face calm. Then she whispered, "Do you still think I'm cursed?" Zor's eyes opened suddenly out and froze in terror. "Lyra, no!" "You're dead." She smiled faintly. "Not anymore." Before he could scream, her hand touched his chest. Silver light spread through his body, beautiful and deadly. A moment later, he was gone, turned to dust that floated into the air. Lyra stared at the ashes, her expression empty. "One," she whispered. 6 more. Outside, the desert wind blew again, erasing all traces of her presence. The first fear by dawn, rumors spread like fire. Villagers spoke in whispers, of strange lights, of footsteps in the night, of Zor vanishing without a trace. Some said his spirit returned for revenge. Others feared the curse had awakened. Her father, Chief Doran, stood before the tribe. "No ghost will haunt us," he said proudly. "It's a trick. We will find whoever is doing this." But when he looked at the desert horizon, he felt something cold in his heart, a memory of a young girl with silver eyes. That night, as the fire burned low, Lyra watched from the shadows. She saw her mother sitting alone, eyes tired and sad. For a brief moment, Lyra's anger softened. But then she remembered her mother had been there too. She didn't stop them. She cried, yes, but she didn't stop them. The wind whispered her thoughts back to her. No one is innocent. The promise of vengeance. Far away, in orbit, Ethan watched from his ship's monitor. He had tracked her pod's signal. His heart was heavy. He wanted to believe she could forgive, but deep down he knew this was only the beginning. "Lyra," he whispered, "don't lose yourself." But down on Zira, the buried girl had already become something else, something her people would soon fear more than death itself. As the moons rose higher, Lyra stood on a cliff overlooking her village. Her cloak fluttered in the wind, her eyes glowing bright like twin stars. "They buried me to hide their shame," she said softly. "Now I'll dig up their sins one by one." The desert answered with silence. Only the sound of the wind and the beginning of her revenge filled the night. The twin moons of Zira hung above like silent watchers. The village was quiet, but fear moved through its streets like smoke. People whispered of strange lights, of shadows that breathed, of voices calling from the sand. Lyra moved through the darkness, unseen. Her cloak fluttered behind her like a ghost's wing. The silver light in her eyes grew brighter each night. She didn't sleep, she didn't eat, only hunted. Her second target was Keth, the brother who had held her down when they buried her. He lived in a house near the canyon, guarding his father's weapons. That night, as he cleaned his blade, the air turned cold. The fire beside him flickered, then died. "Who's there?" he called. The answer came as a whisper right behind him. "Still keeping your hands clean, brother?" Keth turned, heart pounding him, and froze. Lyra stood there, her silver eyes glowing softly in the dark. "No, it can't be you," he gasped. "We buried you." She smiled coldly. "You did, and now I'm returning the favor." Keth reached for his weapon, but the ground beneath him cracked open. Silver light burst from Lyra's hands. The sand rose like a wave and swallowed him whole. His scream faded under the earth, the same way hers once had. When it was over, Lyra fell to her knees, trembling. The energy inside her was stronger now, too strong. The sand around her turned into glass, shining under the moonlight. She looked at her hands in horror. "It's growing," she whispered. "It's changing me." Echoes of guilt far above the planet, Ethan stared at his ship's screen. The scanners showed unnatural energy spreading across the desert. "Lyra," he whispered, "what have you done?" He couldn't stay away any longer. He powered his ship and entered the planet's atmosphere, leaving trails of blue fire behind him. As he landed, he stepped out into the cold night air, clutching a small silver device, something he built to control her power if needed. He prayed he wouldn't have to use it. The meeting Lyra stood near the canyon's edge, staring at the stars. Her hair moved with the wind. Her face was calm, but her heart was heavy. She heard footsteps, soft but sure. "Lyra," Ethan called gently. She didn't turn. "You shouldn't have come." "I had to," he said. "You're not the person I saved." Lyra finally looked at him. Her eyes glowed faintly, filled with sadness and rage. You saved my body, Ethan, not my soul. That part stayed in the grave. Ethan stepped closer. This isn't the way. You're killing them, Lyra, your family. They killed me first, she snapped, her voice breaking. They buried me alive because I was weak. Now they'll see my strength. You're becoming the monster they feared, he said quietly. For a moment, Lyra said nothing. Then she whispered, maybe that's what I was meant to be. Lightning flashed across the desert sky. Ethan reached out to her, but a wall of energy exploded between them, throwing him backward. Stay away, she shouted. You don't understand what's inside me. Ethan got up, coughing. Then help me understand. Let me help you before it consumes you. Her face softened, just for a second. Then her power pulsed again, uncontrolled. The sand rose in circles around her, glowing like liquid silver. She screamed, not in anger, but in pain. It's burning me inside. Ethan rushed forward and placed his device on her arm. A bright blue light spread and the energy began to calm. Lyra fell to her knees, breathing hard. He held her gently. You're stronger than this. Don't let hate control you. Tears filled her eyes. Ethan, I can't stop. The power. It feeds on my anger. If I stop now, it will consume me completely. He held her hand tighter. Then fight it, not them. A new enemy suddenly, a loud horn echoed from the distance. Soldiers from the village had seen Ethan's ship and surrounded the canyon. They carried glowing weapons powered by Zira's energy crystals. The chief himself, Doran, Lyra's father, stepped forward. His eyes widened when he saw her. Lyra? He whispered, his voice trembling. Impossible. She stood up slowly, her cloak falling away. Do you remember this place, father? You left me here to die. Doran's face turned pale. It was for the tribe. You were cursed. Lyra raised her hand, power crackling like lightning. Then let the curse finish what you started. Ethan ran forward, shouting, Lyra, no. A massive explosion of silver light filled the sky. The ground shook and the soldiers were thrown back. When the dust settled, Doran was gone, vanished into the glowing sand. Lyra stood in silence, breathing heavily. Ethan looked at her in shock. You killed him. Her voice was cold. He killed me first. The night fell silent again except for the low hum of her power. Ethan looked at her and saw not the broken girl he once saved, but something else, something powerful, dangerous, and unstoppable. As the twin moons faded into dawn, Lyra whispered to the wind, They buried me to hide their shame. Now I'll bury their world to erase mine. Ethan stood behind her, whispering softly, If you keep walking this path, Lyra, I might have to stop you. She didn't turn. Then be ready to die trying. The wind howled across the desert, carrying with it the sound of vengeance, and the beginning of a war between love and rage. The sky above Zira was no longer calm. Storms of silver lightning rolled across the desert, striking the ground like angry spirits. Every flash carried a whisper of power, Lyra's power. Since the night she faced her father, something inside her had changed. The light in her eyes had grown stronger, sharper. It wasn't just energy anymore. It was alive. Ethan watched from the wreck of his ship. He had survived the blast, but barely. The air was filled with static, and the sand itself shimmered like metal dust. He looked toward the mountains where Lyra had gone. She's losing control, he said quietly. Or maybe something's controlling her. Lyra stood at the edge of a canyon, her cloak torn, her face glowing faintly in the dark. Her thoughts were heavy and wild. She could feel voices in her mind, soft, ancient, whispering words she couldn't understand. Each time she used her power, the voices grew louder. They told her things about the planet, about what slept beneath its surface, and about how her bloodline wasn't a curse, it was a key. When she closed her eyes, she saw flashes of an ancient temple buried deep under Zira's desert. Strange symbols glowed in her vision. A feeling of recognition filled her heart, as if the temple was calling her home. I'm not just one of them, she whispered. I'm something more. The storm followed her as she walked toward the canyon's heart. The ground trembled beneath her feet and the wind whispered her name. She remembered Ethan's words. Don't lose yourself. But it was too late. The power inside her was awakening something bigger. Hours later, Ethan followed her trail, guided by the glowing footprints she left behind. He reached the canyon and saw her standing before a wall of crystal and stone. Strange carvings pulsed with silver light. It looked alive. He shouted, Lyra, stop. You don't know what this place is. She turned, her expression calm and distant. I do now. It's where my kind began. Ethan stepped closer. That energy inside you, it's not just yours, is it? Lyra nodded slowly. It's ancient. My people once guarded it, but they became afraid. They buried it. They buried me because I was born with its mark. Ethan shook his head. If you open that, you don't know what could happen. Her voice turned cold. It's already happening. The ground cracked open. The carvings on the wall glowed brighter. Streams of silver light burst out, wrapping around her body. The power lifted her into the air. Ethan shielded his eyes as a deep rumbling sound filled the canyon. Inside Lyra's mind, everything went silent. She saw visions. Thousands of years ago, her ancestors had trapped a massive energy being inside the planet's core. That being wasn't evil, but too powerful to control. Its power had mixed with her bloodline, passing from generation to generation until it reached her. That was why her eyes glowed, why she was different. She wasn't cursed. She was chosen. When she opened her eyes again, she was floating above the ground, surrounded by a halo of silver fire. Ethan shouted her name, but she didn't answer. Her voice echoed like thunder. They feared me because I carried their secret. Now I will show them what they buried. The storm grew stronger, lightning striking across the desert. In the village below, people screamed as the sky turned silver. Houses shook and the desert began to split. The buried temple was awakening. Ethan ran toward her, shouting over the storm. Lyra, listen to me. You're not this power. You're still you. Her eyes flickered for a moment. Ethan, she whispered, her voice breaking. It hurts. He reached out and grabbed her hand. The light burned him, but he didn't let go. Fight it. You're not alone. Tears rolled down her cheeks, glowing like liquid stars. If I stop fighting, it will take me. Then let me help you, he said. She looked at him for a long time. The wind roared louder. Finally, she closed her eyes and whispered, I'm sorry. Before he could answer, a burst of energy exploded from her body, throwing him far across the canyon. The light shot into the sky, piercing the clouds. For a moment, it looked like day had returned to Zira. Then everything went dark. When Ethan opened his eyes, the storm was gone. The canyon was quiet. Lyra stood at the center, surrounded by glowing symbols on the ground. But she wasn't the same. Her eyes were brighter, her voice calm. It's awake, she said softly. Ethan struggled to stand. What is? She looked at him with a small, haunting smile. The thing beneath us, the one my ancestors feared, and now it's inside me. He froze, realizing what she meant. The energy, the ancient being, was now part of her. She turned away, looking at the desert stretching far beyond. This planet will remember me, she said. Not as the cursed one, but as its true heir. Ethan called out, his voice trembling. Lyra, what are you going to do? She didn't answer. Her silver light faded slowly as she walked into the dark, the ground glowing faintly beneath every step. The buried girl was gone forever. In her place walked something else, something born of light, vengeance, and the forgotten power of a dying world. And for the first time, even the stars seemed afraid. The air over Zira shimmered like broken glass. The storm had ended, but the silence that followed was worse. The planet felt alive, breathing, watching, waiting. Every rock, every gust of wind carried a faint silver glow. It was as if the world itself had opened its eyes. Lyra walked through the wasteland barefoot, the sand turning to glass beneath her feet. The power inside her pulsed like a second heartbeat. It wasn't quiet anymore. It spoke in whispers, ancient voices layered together, telling her she was not just Lyra anymore. She was them. Her mind drifted between memories and visions. Sometimes she saw her own reflection. Other times she saw something vast. Wings made of energy, eyes brighter than stars. A being that once ruled this planet before her kind buried it deep underground. The voices said it was called Varen, the spirit of the core. Now it lived inside her. Ethan wandered through the canyons, searching for her. His arm was burned from the blast, but he didn't stop. He had seen her light rise to the sky, felt the ground shake, and knew she had awakened something far beyond imagination. He followed the faint trail of glowing footprints until he reached a ruined temple half buried in the sand. Inside, the walls pulsed like veins, glowing silver and red. In the center stood Lyra. Her eyes were pure light, her hair floating as if underwater. Lyra, he said quietly. She turned slowly. You shouldn't have come, Ethan. I had to, he said, stepping closer. You're losing yourself. Her voice was calm but distant. No, I found myself. For the first time, I understand what I am. My family buried me to hide their guilt. They were afraid this power would return. And now it's awake again and it remembers everything. Ethan shook his head. Varen's power is using you. It's feeding on your pain. Lyra frowned, her voice trembling for a moment. Pain gave me strength. Without it, I'd still be in the ground. Pain isn't strength, he said softly. It's a wound that never healed. For a moment, the light around her flickered. A trace of her old self showed in her eyes. But the voices grew louder, pushing her further away. The temple walls rumbled as the ground began to crack. Lyra raised her hands. Do you feel it, Ethan? The planet is alive. The core calls to me. It wants freedom. If you release it, he said, Zira will die. Every living thing will burn. Her expression darkened. Then it will be reborn from ashes, clean, pure, free from fear. He reached for her arm, desperate. You don't want this. You're not a god. Her power surged in anger. Then why does the universe kneel before my name? The blast threw him across the temple. He hit the wall hard, pain flashing through his chest. The air smelled of ozone and dust. When he looked up, Lyra was floating above the ground, her voice echoing like thunder. I am not their curse, she declared. I am their truth. The temple roof cracked open, letting the starlight in. Streams of silver energy rose from the ground and wrapped around her. She screamed, not in pain this time, but in release. Far away, the villagers saw the light pierce the sky. They fell to their knees, believing their gods had returned. But what was coming was not salvation. It was judgment. Ethan forced himself to stand. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device, the one he had built to contain her power. He never wanted to use it, but there was no choice now. He limped toward her through the storm of light. Lyra, he shouted. If you can hear me, fight it. Don't let it take your heart. Her voice broke through the roar of energy. Ethan, I can't stop it. It's too strong. Yes, you can, he yelled. Because you're stronger. You saved me once. Save yourself now. For a moment, everything froze. The lights flickered, the voices quieted. Lyra's eyes turned from white to soft silver. Tears rolled down her glowing face, I remember. She whispered. You were the first person who didn't see me as broken. He nodded, reaching out his hand. Then don't let this thing break you. She looked down at her hands, the power trembling between her fingers. If I fight it, I'll die. Then I'll die with you, he said. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Human hearts are strange. The ground beneath them erupted as the core's energy tried to burst free. Lyra screamed, pressing her hands to her chest as light poured out of her body. Ethan activated the device. A pulse of blue light wrapped around her like a cage. Ethan, stop, she cried. You'll destroy yourself. I can handle pain too, he said. The light grew brighter and brighter until it swallowed everything. For a few seconds there was only silence. Then the energy imploded, collapsing into a sphere of silver dust. When the dust cleared, Ethan was lying unconscious on the ground. Lyra knelt beside him, weak but alive. The voices were gone. The core was silent once more. She touched his face gently. You kept your promise. The temple began to crumble. The power was sealed again deep inside her, but she knew it was only sleeping. As she carried Ethan out into the fading dawn, she looked at the rising suns and whispered, You wanted me to fight it. I did. But one day it will wake again, and when it does, I don't know who I'll be. The wind blew across the desert, scattering the last traces of silver light. The planet was quiet, but beneath the surface something ancient stirred, waiting. The twin suns of Zira rose slowly, painting the sky in shades of gold and pale blue. The desert was quiet again, the air heavy after nights of chaos. The storm had ended, but the memory of it still trembled in the sand. Silver dust shimmered faintly under the light, like the world had been marked forever. Ethan opened his eyes to the sound of wind. His body ached, his mind foggy. For a moment he didn't know where he was. Then he saw her, Lyra, sitting nearby on a rock, her cloak wrapped tightly around her. She was watching the sunrise with empty eyes. He tried to speak, but his voice came out weak. You stopped it. She didn't turn to face him. For now, she said softly. But it's still inside me, sleeping. He forced himself to sit up. You saved everyone, Lyra. She gave a faint, bitter smile. They don't know that. To them, I'm still the cursed one. Only now I really am cursed. Ethan stood and walked closer. Her face was calm, but her skin shimmered faintly, like the silver light was still alive under it. "You're not cursed," he said gently. "You're proof that power doesn't have to destroy." Lyra looked at him with tired eyes. "Power always destroys, Ethan. The only question is who it destroys first." A long silence passed between them. The wind carried the sound of distant voices, villagers gathering, rebuilding. They didn't know what truly happened, what nearly consumed their planet. Ethan looked toward the horizon. "You could leave," he said. "Come with me. We can go far away from here, somewhere peaceful." Lyra shook her head slowly. "I can't. This is my home. My punishment. My duty," he frowned. "You don't have to carry it alone." She smiled sadly. "You don't understand. The core and I were linked now. If I leave, it will follow me. If it awakens again, it could spread beyond Zira. I can't risk that." He took a step closer, desperation in his voice. "Then what will you do?" Lyra turned to look at the suns rising higher in the sky. Her silver eyes glowed faintly. "I'll stay. I'll become its guardian, the same way my ancestors once were, before fear made them destroy everything." Ethan's heart ached. "That's not living, Lyra. That's a prison." She gazed at him quietly. "Maybe, but even prisoners can protect the world outside their walls." He wanted to argue, but her calmness silenced him. She had already made her choice. The wind picked up again, carrying sand and faint whispers across the desert. The ruins of the temple still glowed softly in the distance, like a wound that would never heal. Lyra walked toward it, her steps slow but certain. Ethan followed, afraid to leave her alone. When they reached the cracked stones, she turned to him. "Do you remember," she said softly, "the first thing you said to me when you found me buried?" He nodded. "I said, 'You're safe now.'" She smiled faintly. "You were wrong. I wasn't safe then, but I am now." Ethan looked confused. "How?" She raised her hand, and silver light shimmered between her fingers. Gentle this time, not wild. "Because I finally know who I am. Not a curse, not a victim, just a piece of something greater." He felt tears burning his eyes. "You're not alone, Lyra." She stepped closer, her fingers brushing his cheek. "You made me believe that once. Don't forget it when I'm gone." "Gone?" He whispered, fear tightening his chest. "The core can't stay inside me forever," she said. "It's too powerful. I can't destroy it. But I can seal it with myself." Ethan shook his head, stepping back. "No, there has to be another way." "There isn't," she said gently. "You taught me that life is more than survival. Sometimes it's sacrifice." Before he could stop her, she stepped into the ruins. The ground began to glow, ancient symbols lighting up around her feet. The wind turned cold and the earth trembled. "Lyra!" he shouted, running forward. But a wall of light rose between them. She looked back one last time, her silver eyes soft and peaceful. "Thank you, Ethan, for seeing me." And then the light swallowed her whole. The sky flashed silver, brighter than both suns combined. For a moment it was as if the planet itself held its breath. Then silence. The ruins collapsed into dust. The silver glow faded. The desert went still. Ethan fell to his knees, staring at the empty space where she had stood. The air was calm again, but the warmth of her presence lingered. He whispered her name, though no one could hear it. Days later, when he finally repaired his ship, he looked back one last time before leaving Zira. From orbit, he saw something strange. The desert below shimmered in the shape of a silver flower, its petals spreading across miles of sand. He smiled faintly. "She's still here," he said. As his ship drifted into the stars, the flower pulsed once, softly like a heartbeat. And somewhere deep beneath the planet's crust in the silent core, a gentle voice whispered, "The buried girl is gone, but her light remains." The stars flickered in reply as if they remembered her name.